I loved Simon for 10 years, but when I was kidnapped, he turned a blind eye. I begged him to save me. He said, "Cindy, come beg me again when you've learned to kneel and admit your mistakes." This sentence subjected me to hellish torment. When I returned covered in wounds, I learned to stay away from him. But he, with red eyes, begged me to spare him a bit of love. When I returned to the city in tattered clothes, the people around me disdainfully covered their noses and stayed 2 meters away from me. I lowered my head and gently clenched my fingers on my clothes. Sharp-eyed passersby recognized me and whispered, "Isn't that Miss Cindy? How did she end up looking like this ghost?" "Like a homeless person, so smelly, everyone stay away from her." Hearing various insulting words, my heart felt no ripple. Now, I was wearing ragged clothes, emitting a foul odor all over, covered in wounds, like a stray dog. The once glamorous, willful, and vibrant Miss Cindy had died. Under the scorching sun, I stood at the center of public opinion, being watched and filmed by people. Soon, the people surrounding me were pushed away by a group of bodyguards, who restrained me and threw me in front of a luxury car. My wounds burst open, blood seeping into the ground. I gritted my teeth without even furrowing my brow. These pains were mere drizzle compared to my escape journey. Looking up, the person in the luxury car wore sunglasses, revealing only half his face, yet his nobility was hard to conceal. He glanced at me and frowned. "How did you end up looking like this ghost?" I lowered my head to look. What kind of ghostly appearance? A stray dog? A beggar? Or a madwoman? Escaping from those desperados' hands, I was mentally on high alert every day, hiding in the mountains during the day, gnawing on leaves, drinking dirty water when thirsty, and guarding against snakes, insects, and wild beasts. At night, I ran in the dark, got up and continued running after falling, wrapped wounds with rotten cloth strips when injured and bleeding, and rummaged through garbage to eat when hungry. In such an environment, not dying was the best outcome for me. Simon despised my dirtiness and stench, asking the bodyguards to pad clothes where I sat. Afraid of provoking him, I shrank myself into the corner. As the car started moving, Simon's brows furrowed tighter and tighter, then he spoke, "Cindy, you really stink." The fresh blood on my body mixed with sweat and the sour stench from garbage heaps wafted from me. Hearing his words, I subconsciously stood up, wanting to stay farther from him, but I forgot we were in the car. With a bang, my head hit the car roof, then the door handle, and I knelt down abruptly. Pain surged through my body. I bit my tongue tip, afraid of making any sound. Amid the intense pain, my voice trembled. Sorry. I'll get off and walk back myself, I won't dirty your car." On my knees and calves, there were wounds slashed by the kidnappers' knives. On my heels, 2 cement nails hadn't been pulled out yet. The pain prevented me from standing, and cold sweat broke out on my face. Anger appeared on Simon's face, his voice carrying an irresistible command. "What are you doing? Get up." Seeing his angry appearance, my body trembled uncontrollably. I desperately crawled up and sat on the chair. Sorry. Don't get angry, don't send me back to that man-eating place without spitting out bones, I'll go mad." Simon's gaze stayed on me, making me feel like sitting on pins and needles. Even my breathing lightened. He suddenly spoke, "Cindy, you've become obedient." In the past, I was Miss Cindy, with pride, daring to act and take responsibility, never yielding. As long as I believed something was right, I would pursue it. At that time, Simon said, "Cindy, you're too proud, you should learn to be obedient." Now, he has personally killed the once proud Miss Cindy, he should be satisfied now. The car returned to the Fu residence. Simon called the nanny, "Dress her up to look human." I lowered my head to look at myself. Yes, now I'm more disgusting than a stray dog, indeed without any human appearance. After washing myself clean, I originally planned to find long-sleeved shirts and pants to wear, but I couldn't find any. My room had long been emptied. Initially, I insisted on moving into the Fu family. Now that they've thrown away my things, it's understandable. I found the nanny and borrowed a set of casual long clothes and pants from her. "Thank you." The nanny opened her mouth in surprise. She used to see my flamboyant and bright self, and now the timid me who apologizes made her somewhat incredulous. After going downstairs, Simon was watching financial reports. Hearing the sound, he turned to look at me, squinted his eyes, scrutinized me for a while, and asked, "Are you wearing the nanny's clothes? Does it not look good?" But I no longer care now. What I want is just to cover the ugly and terrifying scars all over my body. After standing for a while, the Fu family gate opened. Aunt Hannah saw me and almost ran over. Beside her was Selina, chasing Aunt Hannah. "Auntie, slow down, isn't Cindy standing here just fine? What if you fall?" Selina was a poor student sponsored by the Fu family during charity work. Because her parents were both deceased, Aunt Hannah pitied her and brought her to live at home. After university graduation, she was also arranged into the Fu family's company. At this moment, she was dressed in designer clothes, exquisite and beautiful, forming a stark contrast with me. Her one sentence that I was fine erased all the harm I had suffered. Aunt Hannah ran to my side, hugged me tightly, and cried, "Child, are you okay? They didn't bully you, did they?" Aunt Hannah hugged me very tightly, strangling my wounds into mad pain again. I couldn't speak, just trembling uncontrollably from the pain. "Auntie, isn't Cindy fine? Don't worry unnecessarily, she's doing well." She glanced at me and continued, "Since your incident, Auntie has worried about you every day, not eating or sleeping well, and has become thin and haggard." In her few words, I became a heartless and vicious person. Simon's face also darkened. Enduring the pain, I pushed Aunt Hannah away. "Auntie, I'm dirty." As the words fell, everyone looked at me. Simon's face darkened further. "Didn't you just wash clean? What's dirty about it?" Aunt Hannah's tears flowed more fiercely. "Child, let's not talk about that. Auntie knows you're back and asked the nanny to make your favorite dishes. Let's eat first." Selina supported Aunt Hannah to sit on one side, Simon sat at the head, I sat on the side like an outsider. The dishes on the table were colorful, fragrant, and delicious, so aromatic that I thought I was dreaming. On the escape road, the best thing I ate was moldy bread picked from the trash can. Later, when there was no garbage to eat, I starved for 2 days. When entering the city, I only drank some swill. By now, I had long become numb from hunger. Aunt Hannah picked a piece of braised pork for me. "Eat, Cindy, didn't you used to love Auntie's braised pork the most? Eat quickly." I picked up the bowl, shoveled the braised pork into my mouth, and then devoured the food ravenously. Selina glanced at me disdainfully, eating elegantly in small bites. Simon frowned but said nothing. Aunt Hannah kept picking dishes for me. Sometimes I would look up at Simon's expression. But the more I ate, the stronger the nausea came. Suddenly, I vomited. Everyone looked at me in shock. Selina immediately stood up, utterly disgusted. Simon looked at me disdainfully, his voice laced with anger. "If you can't eat, don't eat, why force yourself?" His roar suddenly reminded me of the days in the kidnapper's den. I immediately squatted down, crawled under the table, my voice filled with endless fear. "Don't hit me, I was wrong, I won't dare next time, don't hit me." With my movements, the dining room quieted down. Simon's expression was somewhat stunned. Aunt Hannah cursed him with tears. "Why are you yelling? You've scared Cindy." Then she pulled me out. "My poor child, did they hit you?" After calming my emotions, I glanced at Aunt Hannah, then saw Simon with a dark face. I didn't understand. When I was kidnapped, the kidnappers gave me a phone to call them for help. I cried begging Simon to save me, saying I'd return all the money to him after going back. But at that time, Simon was angry with me. He said to wait until I learned to kneel and admit mistakes. At that time I clearly knelt and even kowtowed, but he had already hung up the phone. His hanging up the phone sentenced me to death. Actually, the kidnappers beating me was still a good thing for me, because they had other more torturous methods. They would hammer cement nails into my feet, slash my flesh with knives. As long as I was slightly disobedient, they would smash sticks on my body. Oh right, at that time I was pregnant with Simon's child. The tiny child had already formed and was forcibly removed. All this was with your tacit approval. It was you who killed the once glamorous Cindy, and now you ask why I look like this. After dinner, Aunt Hannah asked someone to prepare a room for me. She held my hand and said, "A few days ago, Selena said the things in your room were broken, so she threw them all away for you. Tonight, stay in the guest room first. Tomorrow Auntie will take you to the mall to buy new ones. I knew Selena had long wanted to drive me out of the Fu family. She liked Simon, but I had an engagement with him. She always targeted me openly and secretly. The day before I was kidnapped, I had a dispute with her. She rolled down the stairs herself but said I pushed her. Simon was very angry, so when I called for help, he acted that way. At that time, Selena was beside him, and I heard her say, "Brother Simon, you might as well take this opportunity to teach her a good lesson and make her obedient." Simon agreed. I passionately pursued him for 10 years. My entire youth was filled with love for him. 3 months before the kidnapping, I boldly confessed my love to him, and he rejected me. At that time, with teary eyes and a choked voice, Simon accompanied me for a drink, to end my 10 years of love. That night, we both drank too much. The ambiguous night was warm and intoxicating. I only remember his hands were large, warm, and gentle to me. I happily thought he accepted me, but that call for help splashed cold water on me. Now, after experiencing these things, I've completely become obedient and know how much he hates me, wishing me dead. Aunt Hannah pulled me to sit on the bed, smiling gently. "Cindy, I've seen all your efforts for Simon these years. Auntie knows you love him more than yourself. This time, Auntie will decide for you. You'll get married by the end of the year." Hearing this, my heart skipped a beat. Loving Simon for 10 years, I was humble for 10 years, heartbroken for 10 years, lost a child, endured hellish torment, nearly dying or going mad physically and mentally. I dared not love him anymore. Thinking of being bound to him for the rest of my life, my tears fell. My body trembled uncontrollably, fear surging in my heart. "Auntie, I don't want to marry, I don't want." Seeing my abnormal state, Aunt Hannah quickly hugged me. Okay, no marriage, don't cry, child." Hearing Aunt Hannah's words, my fear didn't subside. Instead, I held her hand. "Auntie, I want to move out. I don't want to stay here anymore." Auntie cried with me. "Good child, it's Simon who wronged you. In the end, he owes you these years. When your parents passed, they entrusted you to me. Auntie didn't take good care of you, sorry. My parents passed early, but they left me a substantial fortune. I have my own company and assets. I could afford the ransom the kidnappers wanted, but Simon blocked all my escape routes. He wanted me to become obedient, so he trampled all my pride underfoot and crushed my dignity to ashes. When Aunt Hannah left my room, it was already 10 at night. I went to the bathroom to wash my face, looking at the haggard face with red, swollen eyes from crying in the mirror. I planned to go downstairs to get some ice to apply. But when opening the door, I bumped into Simon. I quickly retreated a few steps. Sorry. Seeing my swollen eyes, Simon was stunned for a moment, his tone softening. "Cindy, you've been crying." Sorry for disturbing your ears, sorry for annoying you." I turned sideways, wanting to avoid him and go out. Every minute and second with him was torture for me now. But he blocked me. "Cindy, I'm very sorry about this incident." I paused, without speaking or moving. We were too close. I uncontrollably started to fear, my body trembling. I just wanted to stay away from him. Seeing me silent, his expression became impatient. He grabbed my hand. "The kidnappers were just scaring you. How long are you going to make a fuss?" The moment he touched my skin, I instantly slapped his hand like mad. "Sorry, I was wrong, don't hit me." The moment I pulled my hand away, I felt relieved, supporting my trembling legs. I wanted to run out. But after just 2 steps, he grabbed me, perhaps realizing I wasn't normal. His voice softened a lot. "Cindy, what's wrong with you?" "What's wrong?" "Thanks to you, my mental state isn't normal now." Suppressing the tremble of my lips, I said, "Simon, I'll move out tomorrow. From now on, I won't pester you, nor dare to love you." As the words fell, he looked at me incredulously, his expression shocked. After a long while, he asked, "Cindy, what exactly happened to you?" He held my hand again, his actions much gentler. He felt my trembling body and opened his mouth to say something. But at that moment, Selena arrived. She glanced at Simon and my held hands, pretended not to see, grabbed his hand, and said quickly. "Brother Simon, the company's firewall is under hacker attack, I can't hold it, come help quickly." Simon hesitated for a second, finally glanced at me, touched my head, "Be good and wait for me to come back." After he left, my whole body's tension and fear subsided, I slumped against the wall. In the past, many times, whenever Simon and I had intimate contact, Selena would always appear, taking him away with various reasons. I didn't know if he would come back, nor did I expect him to. I just wanted to escape this place, staying longer would drive me mentally unstable, mad. Supporting my body full of wounds and chills, I held the stair railing and went down. I took nothing away, wearing only a thin nightgown, barefoot in the breeze, I walked out of the Liu family villa. The night wind was cool, surroundings pitch black, hugging my arms, forgetting the pain in my feet, I ran like escaping to my own home. The Yenyun villa was once my own home, but no one had lived there for a long time, now it was dusty. Back in the room, looking at the pink princess room, tears flowed again. When my parents were alive, I was also their little princess held in their palms. But since falling in love with Simon, I lost myself, my pride, and even more, my dignity. Cried until tired, I lay on the bed and fell asleep unknowingly. These days, with high mental tension, escaping and injured, I never had a good sleep. When I woke again, a day and night had passed. After getting up, I moved my somewhat stiff limbs and simply cooked some porridge for myself. My stomach was now so fragile that it couldn't accept anything, I had to nurture it back little by little. But just after drinking the porridge, I vomited it out. The stomach cramped in pain, hurting me to break out in cold sweat all over. I fell to the ground without strength, only able to crawl little by little to the landline phone and call an ambulance. Fortunately, the long-unused phone wasn't broken. I don't know how long passed. When I opened my eyes, I was already lying on the hospital bed. A young handsome doctor helped me up. "You've just had your stomach pumped, there are multiple deep wounds visible to the bone on your body, and the cement nails on your feet have just been pulled out. If you need anything, just tell us directly." Perhaps my experience was too pitiful, even a stranger was full of pity for me. I looked up, sincerely at him, "Thank you." The doctor raised the bed for me. "No need to thank, this is what we should do. Rest well first." To recuperate, I stayed in the hospital. Every day after getting up, I supported myself with crutches, sat in the hospital corridor, watching the sun rise and set outside. The doctor came to see me every day and said, "Miss Cindy, be happier, a pleasant mood helps the condition recover faster." I turned to look at him, struggling to squeeze out a smile. But ultimately failed. The doctor said, "If there's anything unhappy, just say it, I'll be a loyal listener." As the sunset rose, I looked into the distance, suddenly wanting to confide in my heart. Perhaps this sunny man gave me a sense of security. I spoke. "Once there was a silly girl who loved a man for 10 years, but in these 10 years, the man was hot and cold to her, yet caring and protective to another woman. She humbly longed for the man to give her a bit of love. Perhaps in these 10 years, the girl's love made the man feel a bit guilty, or perhaps he was bored and wanted to try. He accepted the girl, and the girl got pregnant." As I spoke, I paused. The doctor asked, "What happened later?" "Later, the child was gone, the man killed it with his own hands. The man didn't love the girl, he hated her, wished her dead. After suffering inhuman torment, the girl woke up and dared not love him anymore." I reached out to grasp the last ray of sunset, but the sunset only stayed in my hand for 2 seconds. The next second, the doctor placed 2 milk candies in my hand. "The girl's life is so bitter, let's give her some sweetness." I looked up at him, he lowered his head to peel the candy wrapper and fed it into my mouth. The candy melted in my mouth, dispelling all bitterness. The sorrow in my heart seemed filled with sweet milk candy at this moment. Tears fell at this moment. The doctor was at a loss. "Don't cry, is it not sweet?" Hot tears surged, I cried out, "Snot bubbles, sweet, really so sweet." The doctor wiped my tears and snot while comforting me, "Good if it's sweet, future days will all be sweet." thank you, doctor. I said no need to thank, also, I'm not called doctor, call me Lucas. Okay, doctor. Days passed one by one, my body gradually improved. My stomach was also nurtured back by the stomach-nourishing porridge and tonic soups Lucas brought every day. He brought me small gadgets every day, thinking of ways to amuse me. My smiles gradually increased. Originally thought days would slowly improve, but that day Selena came. She held a bunch of chrysanthemums, carried a bag of oranges, smiling happily. Sister Cindy, see how good I am to you, knowing you're hospitalized, I came specially to see you. She placed the chrysanthemums by my pillow, sat down to peel an orange, then handed it to me. I didn't even glance at her, raised my hand and knocked the orange away. She immediately changed her expression. Cindy, Brother Simon is mine, I advise you not to compete with me anymore. Opposing me, I think you've already experienced the consequences. I turned coldly, get out, take your dirty things and get out. She gave me a vicious glance and laughed, guess if Brother Simon knows about your child? I was stunned, hands tightly clenching the quilt. Seeing me like this, she laughed even happier. That child was instructed by Brother Simon, he said to make you suffer a bit, remove your arrogance, and learn to be obedient. Every beating you received was instructed by him, every mouthful of garbage you ate, every drop of blood you shed. Memories returned to those painful days, my breathing became heavy, body trembling. I thought no matter how much Simon hated or disliked me, he wouldn't harm that innocent child. Surging hatred broke through my last shred of reason, I rushed at Selena. I roared in pain, kicking, hitting, biting her with hands and feet, I'll kill you all. Kill you all. I desperately dragged her toward the window. At the height of the 24th floor, I would perish together with Selena. Just as half our bodies extended out the window, a large hand pulled us back. Cindy, calm down. Don't do something stupid. Lucas's voice was anxious and worried, but I heard nothing, just crying and shouting. I'll kill you all. Lucas's eyes were red, he pulled me into his arms. Cindy, I'm here, I'll always be with you, don't do something stupid. He patted my back again and again, tirelessly soothing me. Just as my emotions calmed, Simon arrived. Cindy, you've been missing so long just to be with him. The questioning voice carried undeniable anger. Selena hurriedly covered her neck, crying pitifully, Brother Simon, I just came in and saw Sister Cindy hugging this wild man. I said a few words to her, and she and this wild man rushed to beat me. Look, my neck is pinched red, and they almost silenced me. Simon's anger intensified. Wild man, so he's your wild man outside. Cindy, you've grown capable. Lucas held my trembling, cold-sweating hand, leading me out right under Simon's nose. Simon blocked us with a dark face. Cindy, come home with me, I give you only one chance. His voice suppressed anger and threat. I restrained my fear, met his eyes. Simon, my home is at Yenyun. Meeting my eyes no longer full of him, Simon was stunned. In those few seconds he was dazed. Lucas took me away. Simon wanted to chase us but was blocked by Selena. She fell into Simon's arms. It hurts so much, Brother Simon. He stopped, roaring at our backs. Cindy, if you don't come back by 8 tonight, don't come back for the rest of your life. His anger made my body tremble subconsciously, teeth chattering. Lucas tightly held my hand, his voice gentle and powerful. Don't be afraid, everything has me. My unease, fear, terror, were dissipated by him little by little. Emotions calmed, I looked up at Lucas. He bathed in sunlight, shining light on me, his broad palm always tightly holding me. Suddenly, a warm current surged in my heart. I hugged him. Lucas, thank you. He was stunned, face slightly red, slowly raised his hand to hug back. If you must thank me, how about pledging yourself to me? Now it was my turn to be stunned. During this time, his care, concern, worry for me, I saw all in my eyes. These days, without him, I might never come out, but Gently pushing him away, I lowered my head, but Lucas, my past is very unbearable. I knew I wasn't worthy of him. Lucas held my shoulders, forcing me to look at him. Cindy, you're very clean, you have the purest heart in the world. Those bad things weren't what you wanted, I like you, including all of you. He hugged me tightly, afraid I'd refuse the next second. I leaned on his chest, listening to his drum-like heartbeat. Deafening. In his tense waiting, I nodded. He happily hugged me and spun around. I have a girlfriend. We held hands and went home together. My home hadn't been lived in for a long time. He helped me clean. After cleaning, we went to the supermarket together, bought many things. He held a small spatula for me, carrying big bags himself. I wanted to help, he said. This is all what your man should do. If I let you do it, what am I for? Unable to argue, I followed him, wiped his sweat, helped carry small things. After some reorganization, my cold house became a warm home. It was Lucas and my little home. Every morning when I got up, I could hear steaming and cooking sounds in the kitchen. When I walked over, Lucas was busily cooking stomach-nourishing porridge for me inside. Seeing me standing behind him, he would run over with the porridge. Fragrant, hot porridge is here, princess, please open your mouth, this humble one will feed it to you. I was always amused by his playful actions. We lived such beautiful days for half a month. That day, Lucas told me the food at home was gone. He went out to buy. I nodded drowsily in sleep. But just buying groceries, I woke up, waited from day to night, but he didn't return. I called one after another, no one answered. I was very anxious and confused. Was he delayed by something, or captured by those kidnappers? Thinking of those kidnappers' torturous methods, my heart immediately tightened. Despite fear and terror, I still went out. Lucas, don't be afraid, I'm coming to find you. I walked aimlessly on the pitch-black street alone, searching. Suddenly, a pair of leather shoes appeared in front. Cindy, you've made a fuss long enough, time to calm down and come home with me. The voice that scared me to tremble appeared in my ear. My whole body felt like falling into an ice cellar. Looking up, my heart sank to the bottom, even my lips trembled. Simon, why are you here? A trace of hurt flashed in his eyes. Don't call me so distantly, Cindy. I retreated 2 steps, just wanting to stay far from him. But as I retreated 1 step, he advanced 1, I was so scared my hands shook. Only one word in my heart, run. He seemed to know my thought, grabbed me. I know you blame me for not saving you in time then, but I clearly instructed them, I don't know why they still. Cindy, I know I was wrong, sorry, come back with me, okay? His eyes gradually reddened, full of regret. I trembled looking at him, not understanding what he was doing. I only knew he deliberately didn't save me, deliberately had the kidnappers inflict inhuman torment on me. He wanted me not to entangle him. But now I've clearly done as he wished, no longer seeking him, become obedient, learned to stay away. I struggled free from his hand, wanted to leave, stay farther from him. I need to find Lucas, he can't fight those kidnappers alone. But Simon blocked me again. I looked at the deserted streets around, asked him, have you seen Lucas? He didn't answer my question but grabbed my wrist. You've really fallen in love with him, right? Seeing his demeanor, I panicked. It was you who took Lucas away, right? Give him back to me. He gripped my hand tighter and tighter, emotionally agitated. Cindy, I don't allow you to love him, forget him, come back to my side. Back to Simon's side? It was as if I heard the sound of hell. Memories of those sticks, whips, and that bloody child surged up. I broke free like mad, roaring and running. I don't want to go back. Suddenly, a sharp pain in my arm, I looked down, a syringe stuck in it. I completely lost consciousness. When I woke again, I was back at the Fu family. This room's decoration was exactly like my previous one, the only difference was it was very new. Simon sat by the bed, no longer as spirited as before, the whole person was much more decadent. His voice was hoarse, Cindy, don't be afraid, we're home. No one will bully you anymore. I cried silently. My voice carried endless plea, Simon, I beg you, give Lucas back to me, okay? I won't dare pester you anymore, as long as you give him back, I promise not to appear before you for the rest of my life, please. Simon collapsed, shaking his head with red eyes. Cindy, I never said not to pester me. Before, I just felt you were a bit annoying, but now I know I was wrong. I just wanted you to learn a lesson, not to be so willful. I didn't expect they would hit you. Didn't expect? Those kidnappers were vicious, methods ruthless. When beating me, they cursed me as a dog clinging to the Fu family. But now I don't want to recall those, I just want to find my Lucas. Crawling up from the bed, I bent my knees, knelt with a thud. Simon, I'm kowtowing to you, kneeling to admit my mistake. Please, give my Lucas back to me. One kowtow after another, forehead bleeding, I ignored it. Simon completely collapsed, staggering back 2 steps, eyes full of desolation. He came to pull me, tears falling from his eyes, extremely heartbroken. Cindy, don't do this, get up first, okay? I knelt on the ground, eyes full of gray defeat. Simon, actually when I was kidnapped, I expected you to save me. After you hung up, they punched and kicked me, saying I wasn't even as good as a Fu family dog, but I refused to accept. I said you were just sulking with me and would come save me, because I thought even living with a dog for 10 years would build feelings, you wouldn't ignore my death. Later, I was slapped in the face. You didn't come for a long time, so they hung me on the beam, no food or drink for days and nights. They filmed my near-death appearance as a threat to you, but in the end, you still didn't come. Simon's eyes filled with sorrow, body trembling. I ignored him and continued. The kidnappers felt played, venting all dissatisfaction and anger on me. They carved on my feet with knives, hammered cement nails into my soles, pulled out my nails one by one, forcibly killed the 3-month-old child. That child was basically formed, with tiny hands, tiny feet. Stop, please, stop. Simon couldn't bear it. He buried his head, sobbing and crying, emotions collapsed. I turned to glance at him, just hearing it is unbearable? Then how painful for me who experienced it personally. Ignoring him, I continued. At that time, survival instinct drove me. I escaped when they weren't paying attention, dragging my body full of blood and wounds along the way, not daring to stop for a moment. During the escape, hungry I gnawed bark, chewed wild grass, thirsty drank dirty water on the ground, and had to be vigilant against snakes, insects, ants, beasts. When finally escaping to the city edge, my feet were already bloody and mangled, picking garbage to eat along the way, drinking swill, sometimes robbing food with dogs. Just like that to the urban area, the first sight of you, you said, smelly and dirty. Simon completely collapsed, knelt before me, eyes bloodshot. Sorry, really sorry. I looked at him expressionlessly. Simon, I think these 10 years, I've really been ridiculous. Saying that, I stood up and walked out. Simon came to pull me. I had half a foot in the air, looked at him smiling. If you don't give Lucas back, then I'll kill myself. As words fell, I gave him a desolate smile, jumped down the stairs under his terrified, sorrowful gaze. No. His desperate, trembling voice echoed through the entire villa. I don't know how much time passed. When I woke again, Lucas was already sitting by my bed. I cried with joy, wanted to get up to hug him, but was pulled back by pain all over. Hiss, Lucas hurriedly helped me lie down, worried, don't move around, rest well, I'll always be here. I nodded obediently, okay. He held my hand, rubbed it on his cheek, eyes full of heartache. Silly, next time if you can't find me, you can't do this. I nodded again saying okay. He gently flicked my forehead, dotingly, really a little fool. We didn't talk long. Simon came. He leaned on crutches, limping. Suddenly recalled the last scene of my jump. He jumped down too. He used his body to catch me, cushioning under me. Following behind him was Aunt Hannah. Aunt Hannah ran over crying, Cindy, my poor child, only now do I know you've suffered so much, all caused by Auntie's family. I patted Auntie's back. I'm fine, Auntie, let the past be past. Simon watched us from not far, emotions in his eyes complex to the point I couldn't understand. Aunt Hannah talked with me for a while, suddenly called Simon over. Family misfortune, raised this beast, Cindy, dispose of him as you wish. Auntie slapped his face in front of me. His face turned to one side, saying nothing. I didn't look at him but pulled Aunt Hannah's hand. Auntie, these years I've caused you a lot of trouble. In the future, I want to move out, manage our little home with my boyfriend. Hearing my words, Aunt Hannah cried more fiercely, Child, in the end, it's our Fu family that wronged you. I comforted Aunt Hannah for a long while before she stopped crying. Cindy, no matter how you hate this beast, but Auntie truly treats you as her own daughter, the Fu family will always be your backing. We talked a bit more before she left. And Simon from beginning to end, his gaze always on me. Lucas went out to fetch water and hadn't returned, only he and I left in the ward. He didn't leave, stubbornly looking at me until eyes reddened. Sorry, it took me so long to understand my feelings, bringing you so much harm. If you really feel sorry, don't disturb my life anymore. As words fell, his eyes reddened more, humbly asked, Cindy, is there really no possibility for us? I shook my head. He cried choking, Please, don't treat me like this. I turned to glance at him, Simon, the wounds I suffered are irreversible, and loving you is really painful to the point I can't breathe. During my hospitalization, Simon limped around. He helped the police catch all the kidnappers and sent Selena in too. On the day Lucas and I married, he came too. He sat in the corner, red-eyed, watching us exchange rings, watching us complete the wedding ceremony. At the end, he mouthed, Wish you happiness, peace, and joy. He went out red-eyed, spat a mouthful of blood, fell to the ground. While it rolled out, a photo fell. The girl in the photo was youthful and overflowing, smiling at the lens. That was the 18-year-old Cindy insisting he take it. He crawled over, picked up the photo, wiped the bloodstains on it. Not dirty, my girl is not dirty.